Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the TL2D podcast. Today, we're talking about some of the issues that affect women. And we have Adriana with us from the TL2D team, and Jessica and Megan, who is also our producer. So maybe Megan, talk a little bit about how you contribute to TL2D.
Yeah, so I started out just as the podcast editor, and then I became the producer. So I've been behind the scenes for all of these podcasts so far, like coming up with ideas, putting them together, editing them. But now I thought, you know what, it's my time to shine. So here I am.
Well, Thank you and welcome. And of course, very appropriate that we have women on this podcast today, because we're talking about the issues that affect women as drivers and women's safety. Now, of course, that sounds very sexist, and the tips that we talk about will apply to everyone, but women are more likely to be preyed upon. And women drivers often drive alone. So that's kind of where we're going to start. And Jessica, I know you have a story to share.
Yes, I have quite the interesting story. So mine stems back about 2 years ago. During the summer, I was working a retail job and I was a cashier at the time. And this man had come up to me, cashed out his groceries. And after he had left a note on the counter and had walked away. When I opened the note, it was just a very innocent, I guess you would say, love letter type-esque. And everybody at work, I showed it to my manager, everyone thought it was really cute. And I had a little secret admirer until the end of the shift had come and I was part of the closing staff. I had walked to my car and I had noticed something on my windshield. And you know, when sometimes there's little fender benders, people leave a note on the car like, hey, hit your car, sorry. So I thought maybe it was one of those scenarios. So I get out of the car, I open the note, and it was the same note as the previous one, except this one was double-sided. So this was left on the windshield of my car. And at that point, I was like,
car.
At that point, I was like, okay, he knows my car. This is a little bit of a scarier situation than I had originally thought. So I talked to my manager about it, and during the time at that store, we had a set schedule. So she's like, okay, we're going to give you 2 weeks off. We're going to change the days that you're working. If you can, try to change the car that you're driving. That wasn't my car, it was my mom's. So I had switched to my sister's, as well as we had parked, staff parking is typically in the back or typically more in a less known area, because you obviously want to have priority parking for the customers. She was like, you're going to park right at the front of the store. The store is primarily glass. We can see who's coming to your car, as well as on your break, you're staying in the store. And when you come back, people are going to be walking you to your car whenever you need. And I was like, wonderful, perfect. I didn't feel at that time it was necessary to get the police involved. I felt that my management team did the necessary precautions and I felt safe. It was about maybe a month later. No interactions had happened. Everything was okay until I was leaving. It was like a midday shift. And I had reached into the handle of my car and a note popped out. And you could not see the note at all until I genuinely even standing in front of it, I didn't see it. It wasn't until I put my hand through the handle that it popped out. And so that one really freaked me out. And the notes progressively got a little bit more disturbing. So I went back into the store, told my manager, the police were called. I had waited for a parent to come pick me up because I didn't feel comfortable driving home. It was after that the police had taken the necessary precautions. And now to this day, I haven't had any interactions with the individual. But it just goes to show you, sometimes even though you're doing the best that you can, that's not enough. And sometimes you do have to take the necessary precautions. For example, getting the police involved in order for somebody to stop.
It's very, very scary. And I'm glad that nothing further happened. But it's a great cautionary tale. And the management team there did a lot of the right things. There was a break, for 2 weeks where if he was watching, he could have thought maybe you weren't coming back, and then changed your schedule so that he couldn't predict when you would be there, and changing the vehicle. So those were all really good things. And regardless, he was there. So the next step was calling the police.
I think the scariest thing was knowing the license plate, and especially receiving the third note, because we had switched cars.
That tucked away so you couldn't see it. Like, how creepy is that?
Yeah. And so sometimes even when you're trying to give off the signal, hey, not interested. People don't get that through their heads. I did find out that I believe he was in his 30s and I was 18 at the time. So that was also quite disturbing for everybody, but it was knowing the license plate that was the scariest for me because, since I knew how to drive, obviously no one wants to come. My parents or my sister don't want to come pick me up late at night from my retail job. I'm driving myself. So knowing how often I worked, knowing that he knew my license plate, you never know if somebody is following you home. Like he was clearly watching me for a period of time that I wasn't even aware of. So at that point, I felt it was necessary to go to the police.
Right. And he could have followed you home. He could know where you live. I mean, it's a really horrible situation. I'm glad that you're okay. Another thing in that kind of a case, I mean, this was very targeted and extremely creepy, and you did all the right things. But in another situation, I mean, it could be some random person that, well, of course, that guy was random too, but a random guy who in one situation is clearly watching you and you don't want to go out to that far parking spot you had to take at night in the mall or whatever. And you can get a mall security guard to walk you out. Which comes to where you park too. I mean, whenever you can, you want to park under a light, right? You want to park as close to the entrance as you can. Never next to a big van, or when there's another vehicle too close to you. And one mistake that I hear people making all the time is they're clicking their clicker to unlock their car as they're approaching. Like wait until you get to the car, right? And make sure that, and then unlock your car, get in and lock it behind you, instead of doing it in advance. And always looking in the back seat before you get into the vehicle. So that's one thing. Did somebody else want to share a story about being, feeling uncomfortable because of the way another driver or someone was acting? Megan.
Definitely. So not nearly as creepy as Jessica's story. By the way, I want to say about Jessica's story, I'm glad, I think a big thing is don't be afraid to call the police, because I think a lot of times women can feel like, oh, they're going to think I'm being dramatic or I'm being dramatic or whatever, stuff like that. But in reality, you don't know who this person is and you don't know when they're going to stop and you don't know how serious or how crazy it's going to get. So one thing I want to say about Jessica's story, don't be afraid to call the police.
Absolutely.
Anyways, my story, not as dramatic, but also this was a few years ago working a retail job. So on my lunch break, I was like, I just needed to get out of there. So what I would do is I would drive my car a few minutes away into this parking lot and I would eat my lunch in my car. And I can remember this one time, it's literally it was actually, it was a no frills that had shut down. So it was literally a huge parking lot with almost no one in there. And so I parked and I'm eating, and this guy literally pulls up right next to my car, and he's just staring in the window at me, right? And literally has the creepiest look on his face, clearly just, right? So my big point that I want to make that I think goes a long way is just make sure, making sure that the other person knows that you see them and that you know that they're being creepy and that you're not going to put up with it can go a long way. So I looked right at him, stare at the person. I don't want to always say him, but let's be honest, usually it's a him. Stare right at him. I swear I gave him dirty looks. I swear I looked at him and I was like this, stuff like that. I mean, because I think people like that, they're looking for someone vulnerable and they're looking for someone scared, right? So if you can show just even in your body language that you are not scared of them, even if you are, I think that's really important. We were just chatting earlier also, I don't know if this is a good point to bring this in, but and this goes for related to vehicles or even on the street, if someone's following you, whatever. What did you call it, Adriana? Out crazy the crazy?
Out crazy the crazy. You have to out crazy the crazy. So that's always my go-to.
Yeah. So examples of that, literally don't be afraid, growl at them or squawk at them, do some
roll your eyes back.
Roll your eyes.
Go full, just do whatever and stare at them, don't blink, anything to make them, it's like animal intimidation, how whoever blinks first, just it's kind of like that, but out crazy to crazy, always.
Out crazy to crazy. So I remember,
but don't be afraid to use your cell phone too.
Yeah. You
no
can even
one
just
wants
type
to
911 and show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
just
know,
and then
I'm
protect,
recording
like,
you, and I think that would get people out of there pretty fast. Nobody wants to be the look out for this guy on a viral video, right?
Or there's a lot of times I pretend I was on the phone. It wouldn't be in a situation where I thought necessarily someone was following me, but if I saw someone that I was like, okay, I'm not sure if I feel entirely comfortable, I'm like, oh, hi, mom. Yeah, no, I'm going to be home in 5 minutes,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. And,
how many
once they know
machetes
that
do we
maybe
have
you're
at home?
talking to somebody,
4?
yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
Juliana,
yeah.
you're lost again. Like, what are you okay?
Yeah.
Something like that too. I just, quick things.
Well, now in Megan's situation, you had your doors locked, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
So, I mean, that would be a first thing too. You want to make sure. But I mean, how creepy is that when in an
And
empty parking lot,
not
someone
only
pulls
was-
up right next to you?
Not only though was he just like parked next to me looking, he started driving like extremely slowly just around my car in circles.
No.
Like
That is so
and
creepy.
just staring at me the whole time. And again, I just kept looking at I literally followed him like while he was going around, and I was just like going like this, like so obviously. And he eventually left. So there's my tip.
Yeah. I mean, who has fun doing that? But there are a lot of nuts out there, right? And you don't want to put yourself at any risk. The worst thing you could do is to get out of your vehicle. At least you have some safety within the car when the doors are locked, and then use your cell phone if you need to get some help, or drive off. If you really feel that uncomfortable, move the car, take it somewhere where there's more people around. But a lot of crazy people who you don't know who's going to do you harm. And I think that's one of the problems, especially for women, is it's, like a secret admirer. We associate it almost with something positive initially, that somebody is taking an interest, and that is just so, we really need to get over that. It's these are creepy people who are at very least trying to frighten you. And beyond that, I mean, they could mean you some real harm.
I was very lucky in my scenario where I had management and I had my coworkers be very protective. I know when it might have been one time that I wasn't working, that they had noticed him around the store, and they actually saw the car that he was driving off in. They didn't get the full license plate, but when I knew the color and I knew at least the starting letter that I would see outside, because our cash register was right near this glass window where you could see onto the parking lot, I would ask someone, hey, there's some carts outside. When you go, can you check? Or, hey, we always had a closing staff, so there would never just be one person. So they would specifically walk me all the way to my car and make sure that I drove off safely. So I was very lucky in my scenario too, to have people around me that I also felt comfortable enough to be like, hey, can you do this? Like, I'm kind of getting a little bit freaked out. And I think Megan brought up a good point. It's very important, if you do feel uncomfortable, to go and reach out to those people around you. It doesn't have to be something as dramatic as getting a note left on your windshields. But, for example, if Megan felt so uncomfortable that, hey, maybe this guy might come back, you might go back into the store, talk to people about it. Hey, if you see this guy, can you let me know? And I think there's totally a stigma around, are you being crazy? I know after the first, even just the note that I received on my windshield, I thought, oh gosh, like, is this something I should go to the police for? Is this not am I going to go to the police and they're going to be like, everything's fine. This is just a secret admirer. You never know in these situations who's going to be crazy, who's going to be not. I often think, if I went to the police after that first scenario, would the other ones have even happened? You never know. Or if I didn't go to the police, what could have continued to happen? It's all about really what you feel comfortable.
I think you need to trust your gut though. Like, as women, like, we have a sixth sense for when someone is off and when someone has bad intentions, and we just know. So I think definitely trust your gut.
I've also heard people refer to it as that little voice. When that little voice in you is saying, this isn't normal, you need to pay attention.
Yeah, I was just saying, I agree. Like, you're picking up on context clues, whether you're aware of it or not. So as soon as something feels off, like that's note to be like, okay, I need to be a little extra aware in this particular moment and alert myself as to what the scenario is and what I need to be doing.
you may also be giving a voice for somebody who may have experienced the same thing and may have also felt uncomfortable, but didn't feel comfortable to then go and speak to somebody about it. You know, these scenarios don't have to be super dramatic. They can be something super minor, but at the end of the day, if you're uncomfortable, you're uncomfortable. And you need to advocate for that. You need to tell people around you, because you never know when it's going to go from 0 to 100. For example, Megan's scenario could have started a little bit smaller with somebody pulling up beside her. But at the end of the day, if he came back into the store later, that could have escalated really quickly. You never know.
Never get out of the vehicle. It's, you
Sure.
know, and there are scenarios where people will do something and again, it's something I read about, but a car stopping suddenly in front of you, and it's all about getting you out of the vehicle. Once you're out of the vehicle, they can take the vehicle or they can take you, right? Or both, right? So you want to make sure that you don't fall for any of that stuff. If you think somebody is following you, like even when you're driving along, you all of a sudden you think somebody's following you. I mean, what are the steps you might take if you've seen that car for the last 5 minutes, you're driving alone, and the guy keeps coming up behind you, maybe drops back a bit, but he's still there.
Well, I found a really good resource on that, on like how to stop someone from following you or losing a tail. So kind of first thing, kind of like I suggested earlier, let them know that you know. Rather than stopping and confronting them, maintain your speed, write down your license plate, and take a photo of the plates if you can. Make eye contact with them. You can even take a picture of them. Make sure that they know that you see them. Don't go to like isolated places. So get to somewhere busier, like a highway or populated roads. By all means, avoid ending up alone on like some off, road with this person. Another thing you can do, you have to be careful with this, but you try and get out of sight by using like larger vehicles, like big rigs or like transport trucks, big SUVs, something like that, to create like a visual barrier between you and them. But be careful. I know, Anne-Marie, you said to not be sort of like cat and mouse, like that's not safe for anyone. But that is a tip you can use. And then the last one, once again, don't be afraid to call for help. So dial 911, give them your location, and take down all information that you can. So about the make and model of both of your cars, any kind of unique descriptions as well about like bumper stickers, window tinting, stuff like that. And a lot of times, even if the person like hears the police coming, that can a lot of the times like be enough if they just hear sirens or anything like that. So those were some tips that I found for what you can do if you feel like someone's following you.
Yeah, again, listen to that little voice, right? It's, there are a lot of cars on the road. Be aware of all the vehicles around you, and somebody who's making too much eye contact, trying to pull up and look in your vehicle, that kind of stuff. I mean, you want to be just aware. Adriana, you're going to add something?
I was going to say, I believe you're well within your rights in that situation to call 911 if someone's following you. Or I've heard to even like drive into a police station if you know where it is, like just head right towards a police station, because they're most likely not going to follow you into an actual police station. Or if they do, I mean, he's right there. Good for the police, made their job real easy. But,
and I'm sure a lot of the times too, they're not expecting you to go to the police or to take that extra step to ensure of your safety. And I'm sure that also goes with the stigma of secret admirer and all of that. But, if in your gut is telling you this, you're really unsafe, exactly, pull into a police station, call the police, call a parent or guardian, trusted friend, somebody that at least also not even just in terms of feeling unsafe, but also knowing where you are in case things do escalate to a point that people are aware of where you are.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to something larger about like a mindset, like making sure like if you feel scared that you have a lot of power, like you can do so much, you can take so many steps, and just even the second you allow yourself to feel that fear, like you can start making mistakes. So knowing that like I'm safe, I'm in control right now, and I can sort of do what I need to do to be safe, like this person is not going to intimidate me or scare me, will go a long way. Yeah.
Another thing from my reading is that in the event that somebody does grab you, now, unless you're a martial arts expert, which some people are, a good thing to do is just go limp, because it's very hard for them to hang on to you or force you into a vehicle, or if you are like Jello, right? And it makes it very clear to anybody else that, hey, there's something really wrong here too. I've also heard that if somebody grabs you like that, don't yell rape or help, because sometimes people go the other way. But if you yell something like fire, everybody seems to want to know where the fire is. So
Yeah.
you might, kind of get more attention that way.
How sad is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
tragic, absolutely tragic. But if it works for you, that's okay. Another thing to talk about is pumping gas, right? You pull into the gas station, and I really try to remember to do this every time when I get out to pump gas, to lock the door. How many cars have been carjacked at gas stations? When somebody else just jumps in and takes off. I saw another video online of a lady who's pumping gas, and this car pulls up and a couple of guys jump out, clearly right next to her vehicle, clearly with the intention of jumping into her car and stealing the car. And so she's pumping gas and she turns the gas hose on them. And the person who posts this says, oh, here's the right thing to do. Are you kidding? All you need is somebody with a match and everything goes up. I mean, that's just nuts. But you do have to do something. But if you lock the car, then you don't have to worry about it, especially if you've got a child, right? A child in the back seat. How often have you heard about a carjacking at a gas pump and there's a child sleeping in the back seat? So lock the car. I mean, now it's not even a big deal. It's just a click on your clicker, right? And when we were talking about parking lots where you're going back to the car and maybe there's somebody who's kind of hanging around where your car is, and to hit that thing where your car starts beeping.
Panic button.
The panic button.
Panic button?
I call it the panic button.
At
Me
least
too.
somebody will look. Or it might scare them away. The sad thing is these days that they go off so often that because people use them to locate their vehicle, that a lot of people just don't look anymore. But it could scare the person away, at least make them move. But if you find there's somebody too close to your car in a parking lot, don't get back in. Go back and get somebody to walk you out.
And also, I don't know if we already said this, but don't unlock your car until you're like actually at your car. Don't unlock like, a mile
and
away.
only unlock the driver's door if that's, you're only one person. Don't unlock all the doors. It's and then lock it behind you. So
Yeah.
Any other situations where you guys have felt threatened, or any other gems of wisdom you want to impart?
For me, it was the TTC. I found that like it's an easy place to get followed on when you're taking public transit, and you always hear horror stories about the TTC and like public transit. So I feel like you go into it with the mindset of like, okay, I already need to be cautious. But as you were saying, like that little voice, like you don't know necessarily like what tips you off. But I remember I was like getting off at stations and like waiting for the next train, and then going on, I noticed someone was following me. And like at that time, what I did was I just texted my friends and had one of them come pick me up. I was like, hey, someone's following me. I'm just going to keep you posted. Like, here's my location, just so you know. And like we chose a meeting location. They picked me up afterwards. But
which comes back to that, what 3 words, right? We were talking about this in the last episode, and it's where to pick you up. Like some of those subway stations or whatever, they have 4 or 5 entrances, right? You use that app to locate exactly where you are, and they know where to come and get you, and stay inside until they arrive so that you have some protection. Yeah,
it's important to make sure you're in like the public view, and like even just getting off and on to like make sure, because I know for me it's like, am I like psyching myself up? Am I just thinking something's happening? And then after 1 or 2, you're like, okay, no, you need to just make sure.
It's because I do think that women are raised to think, oh, well, either it's an admirer, how cute, or they think I'm pretty, or it's flattering that somebody would pay it. No, those are all just not the right way to look at it. You got to protect yourself, and you've got to be aware of what's happening around you. It has nothing to do with who you are at all. It's, they see you as a victim. And you don't want to be a victim.
And you really shouldn't see it as flattering, because what these people want, again, it's like, it's not that they want you, it's like they literally want to make you uncomfortable, and they want to make you scared, and they want to ignore your boundaries or your interests or anything like that. So it's not something to be flattered by.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we really need to get over that. You know, it starts with, oh, she's such a pretty little girl. What a lovely little, it's, you know, you got to look after yourself. And we really need to change how we think about that.
Yeah.
And then there are other situations that can happen to anybody, male or female. For example, getting trapped in a vehicle. Maybe in the case of a rollover, the vehicle rolled over, or the seatbelt jams and you need to get out of the vehicle. Maybe Megan, you want to talk a little bit about, sorry, before we were talking about this a little bit before, and Megan can tell you a little bit about these devices, but Adriana was saying her dad bought a whole box of them because, you know, you can never be too safe.
We should do a giveaway.
Never.
Do a giveaway.
We could.
Or something. Do you have that many of them?
I think they were on sale, and he's like, these are good to have, just in case. You'll have one on the keychain. Yeah.
So, but maybe Megan, talk about what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, in preparation for this podcast, I was thinking, is there some kind of like kit or something that maybe like women in particular or anyone should have in their car, like any kind of tools or whatever? And the only one that I kept seeing that I thought made sense was, and I had never heard of it, it's called a car escape tool. So basically most of them do two things. They have like a blade so you can cut a seatbelt if you need to. And then they also have something that will break a window. So they're not expensive. I looked it up. I found ones for literally $15, $20, $25 at like Canadian Tire or anywhere like that. So that's great to have. I don't know if we want to go, you know, as far as to say like pepper spray and stuff. I don't even know if it's like legal to have that on you, but I mean, it's good to have.
Bear spray is if you're in like the woods, right? But lighter and aerosol are both legal things that you can keep on you. Like at any time, not that you should.
But I think we have to be practical too. I mean, who's going to start fishing around in the glove box for bear spray in the event that some, you know, but I think
maybe it's in your car emergency kit.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you want to go into the trunk.
Yeah.
But
no, watch the previous episode.
In the back.
Yeah. But to be able to break a window in the event you had to, and because windows are very hard to break. And just it's like a little hammer thing, right? And one or two hits with that will shatter a window and allow you to escape the vehicle. Sometimes even when the seatbelt is working, people panic when they have to get out in a hurry. And to have a seatbelt cutter is a very handy thing too.
The tools are handy underwater, I heard too, because I know that's why my dad got them in case the car goes underwater, because it's supposed to break the window if the vehicle goes underwater. So I know that was
and it rarely happens, but you really don't want to get stuck in a situation like that.
No, and I've seen it happen. I know once when there was that big flood, a car went under the bridge by my house and luckily came out the other end and the woman was able to get out. But my dad was like, see the tool? You never know when you need it. So.
But you know, so much of it is really being alert and aware to begin with. If it's flooding, you really don't want to be driving. You know, if it's in that really horrific weather that streets can flood, you don't want to be driving. So it's more like, but if you do get stuck, it's good to have the tools. Anything else?
Technology that you can use to keep yourself safe. So the first thing that comes to my mind is on iPhones. I'm not sure if like on Androids or other phones there's a feature like this. I'd imagine there is, but on iPhones there's something called emergency SOS, which is if you hit the power button like really fast, I think 3 or 5 times, you can call like emergency services. So it's called emergency SOS, the feature, and it's basically like a discreet way of calling for help. So if you're in a situation where you want to call for help, but you're, I don't know, trapped in a car, or the person is like right next to you and you don't want to just like whip out your phone and be like, hey, 911, there's this whatever. It's a way to discreetly call for help. So that's a really important one. And then there's also an app that I found that I have definitely heard of in the past. It's available on iPhone and Android. It's called Be Safe, like just the letter B and then safe. It's the top rated like personal safety app. And it does a lot of things. It gives you ways to like contact emergency services. It gives you ways to document like things that are happening to you. So like recording or like taking pictures, even live streaming. It allows you to like call for help through certain like cues in your voice. So kind of like what you were saying, Anne-Marie, with the random things, you could set up like a random word to say, and then that could get you like help. They have fake calls you can set up, like you can have make it look like someone's calling you to help you like maybe get out of a situation, stuff like that. It does a whole lot of stuff. So not only helping you get help, but helping you like document like situations that you're in and stuff like that. So that's called Be Safe, if you would like to download that.
Another thing that I've read about and is that in the event that you are ever forced into a trunk, every car after a certain year, and I would say at least the last 10 years, probably the last 15 years, if the vehicle has a trunk, there's a latch from inside that you can use to open the trunk. And you should know where that is. And Jessica, how would you find out where that latch is?
The handy dandy owner's manual.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in the event that somebody did force you into a trunk, that you would know how to get out of the trunk.
It is lit up though, I'm pretty sure. It should be lit up.
I think so. And I think they usually have like a little loop you pull, something like that. But very easy to figure out where it is. And Adriana, you had another really good idea too. In the event that you're forced into the trunk.
Yeah, this is from a John Mulaney skit that I was watching, but like in the skit, it was talking about safety tips, and he was saying like if you just punch the tail light and like wave your hand out, then like oncoming traffic will clearly see that there's like a person in the trunk like trying to get help. So it's a good way to like alert people to the situation, and they'll to take note, because that's something that you wouldn't see on the road. Yeah, I don't know how you would go about punching a tail light, but I'm sure you could figure it out.
Or kicking it.
Kicking it. That's good.
Kicking it out. Yeah.
But at least something to let people know that you need help.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other side of all of this is that if you see any of these things from anybody else, like be the helper, right? Like be the one who calls 911 about the car ahead.
And there's a movie where this happened. It's called The Call with Halle Berry. I've seen it many times. It's literally about a girl who does get like forced into a trunk and like kidnapped. And so she does exactly that. She kicks out a taillight and she starts waving, and someone calls, but there was like paint in the trunk too. So she was on the phone with 911, and they're like, okay, pour the paint like out of the like the hole where the taillight is. And so this is what not to do. Someone sees paint coming out of the back of the car, pulls up and goes, oh sir, you have like paint like coming out of your trunk, something like that. So if you see if you see someone waving, if you see something like sticking out of a trunk or whatever, don't go up and tell the driver. Maybe your first thought should be, okay, maybe someone's trapped in there.
Yeah, because I would have been like, hi, sir, you have something.
Oh, did you know?
Yeah.
There's a hand out of your taillight. Not sure what that is.
Isn't that a Halloween thing?
Halloween
is
in a couple of months. You should maybe put that back.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Everyone should watch that movie. It's such a good movie. It's called The Call.
The Call.
All right.
Now that you mentioned that, I remember watching it.
But there's some good tips in that movie, though. Kind of about this.
I'll have to put that on my list.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.